In time and space. His thoughts, consciousness, a kind of peace of mind. He experiences himself.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Deciphering My Experience. My name is Eric, and we have an excellent little surprise today in studio. But before we get there, I just want to remind everybody to subscribe, like, share, and make sure you comment. Let me know what you think about everything that's going on in the world today with disclosure. But upward and onward, today we are having a return guest to the studio. Holly, who I had introduced previously as the voice of Antarctica, was doing me the benefit of dialing in some stuff here in the studio, and she grabbed her laptop, and we're just going to see if she's got some pictures that we can discuss about our time at Antarctica, because everybody's always interested in what happened down on the ice, and since Holly and I shared a winter there, we figured we might share some of her experiences with you. So without further ado, let's welcome Holly to the studio. How you doing today, Holly?
Hey, Eric, I'm doing good. How are you?
A lot better if I turn your microphone on.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you.
Okay, I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
Cool. Happy Easter.
Oh, that's right. It's Easter Sunday, everybody. Happy Easter.
Hoppy Easter, I like to say.
Hoppy Easter. Mm-hmm. Speaking of things hopping around in a way, we had an event this week in our backyard, and an eagle hopped on a duck and took it apart, and Holly had the benefit of witnessing that firsthand. What did you think of that going on in the backyard?
It was awesome. It was poor duck, but it was like Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom in our backyard. This big bald eagle was chomping on this duck on the ground. There was feathers spread everywhere when I saw it, and blood on the snow, because we still have a lot of snow in our backyard. And this eagle just mowing on this duck, and then he tried to take off, and he was dropping it, and then he'd drop himself down again and go back and try to pick it up and then fly off, and he couldn't pick it up. So he just was guarding it from above in a tree. It was pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
I was hoping we can go over some photos that you might have from Antarctica, and nothing in particular. I mean, I know you have so many photos, and it's hard to go through them all. I know you take copious amounts of photographs of things, so it's not necessarily easy to jump through and pull things out as people might think. But I imagine it's also rather topical either way.
Yeah, cool. I mean, we did talk about maybe delving into some South Pole stuff, so I do have some cool information put together in some photos, and I like to share those anytime I can.
Yeah, you got it. Fire it up.
But I want to see about more of South Pole stuff here.
Why don't you tell the folks what got you interested in Antarctica to begin with?
Well, it was the last continent that I had to check off my list of going to all the continents in the world. And I knew that it was easier to go work there than it was to try to pay to go there.
Okay.
It's very expensive to do cruises. Even if you get them at discount prices at the last minute, it's still pretty expensive. And I wanted the experience of being there anyway. So,
what year would you say it was that you first started to consider going in the direction of Antarctica?
When my friend Kim and I had heard about the idea of working in Antarctica, it was probably 1991.
Okay.
And that's when I applied in 1992. No, I think the same year I applied in 91 to try to get a job there, not knowing if there was any postings for jobs or anything. Just sent a cold letter and a resume or whatever. And we were going to be traveling on a round the world trip right after that. So it was like we sent a letter to this whatever place that gets thousands and thousands of letters for jobs like this, and we're like, oh, but if you need to contact us we'll be getting mail at the embassy in Thailand from this month to this month, and then we'll be getting mail at this address from this month to I mean, how silly of us to think that they're going to try to follow those instructions and write us back.
It sounds like government contracts and bids, though, technically, making people jump through hoops to accomplish stuff.
So I was trying to make them jump through hoops to hire me. It was funny. I never get hired then, but then I heard about the program again in a different way from other friends in about 2004. So.
Now, when you were interested in the program in 1991, were you aware back then that it was still possible to spend copious amounts of money to visit Antarctica?
No, I don't think I knew how you could visit it otherwise in 91.
Okay.
I thought the only way you could really go there was to go to work.
Okay.
Yeah.
But now in 2004, you knew there was the option of
Yeah.
travel to or employment.
Yes.
Okay.
But travel to is kind of a vague term because most tourists don't get to go and experience a more in-depth Antarctica. They go to the fringes of the continent, the edges by boat. Mm-hmm. And some of those places aren't even south of the Antarctic Circle. They're just part of the Antarctic continent. Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of a different experience if you're not below the Antarctic Circle and where the sun doesn't set for 6 months and all that stuff. It makes a big difference in the experience. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, tourism and visiting, paying money is even still different than going as a worker and being able to see the real Antarctica. Because there's nobody living there legally or not, like setting up residence there. There's no communities that exist there. So there's only the science and commercial ventures like exploring people that want to do trips across the continent, skiing or doing something like that. And then the tourism that is granted permission to go to some of the stations or to be along the coast on the continent, it's okay. Mm-hmm. So very limited ways to be able to visit the continent. And the real Antarctica was the best way. The best way to visit was through work. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I did a lot of it. That's cool. I really never expected to spend 7 seasons there when I first went.
And what was the actual season that was the first season that you arrived on the ice?
It was 2005. Would have been October. Or no, I think I had to go a little bit earlier in September, maybe. I think I spent a longer season there, my first year as a dishwasher. So anyway, went down in September in 2005.
And were all of your seasons consecutive?
Yes.
Okay. And
well, consecutive in the sense it was every year I would go for summer.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
Yes,
Summer season consecutively every year until the last season. I followed it with a winter.
Mm-hmm. I got you.
Yeah.
And how do I put it? The seasons that you summered, were they similar in length every time?
No, I did the average summers are usually around 4.5 months.
Okay.
So I did some of those average length summers, but I also did some extended season summers. Like when I first went to MacOps in the department known as the Voice of Antarctica, mm-hmm. When I first went into that department, I had to go early into the year before the summer season started. I had to go in what's called wind fly. Mm-hmm. So it's 6 months earlier just to do the training that was necessary to have to dial in the job before the season opened. So that was a longer season. And then one time there was an extended season during the geologic year. I forget what it was, like the International Geological
Geophysical year.
Yeah, and that was a special year that they had some more projects going on, science, and that extended longer into the season. So we kept the station open longer with a few science groups staying later. Not the whole population stayed as long, but they called it extended season. That was 2008, so I stayed for that too. That was through till April, which was cool to see, the transition season. And yeah, that was cool.
If you could tell the listeners, like, I guess, the big differences, like if somebody was to say to you, all right, you've been to McMurdo Station and you've been to South Pole Station, like bird's eye view, what's McMurdo Station, what's South Pole Station? How do you compare them?
McMurdo Station is cushy compared to South Pole Station in a lot of ways. It's not as restrictive on your not livelihood, but lifestyle. McMurdo's not as restrictive on the lifestyle as it is at South Pole. There's definitely more hardships endured at the South Pole. And then with the daylight hours that switch completely at South Pole, where at McMurdo there's a lot of time where the sun is still up. It doesn't ever go down entirely for the full 6-month winter. It's only for a short period that it's down all the way. If that's even, I don't even know if it goes all the way down, come to think of it. 77 degrees south. Anyway, yeah, South Pole is dark for 6 months, light for 6 months. It's just crazy. Yeah, and the high altitudes, that makes a big difference. You don't have any of the wildlife in South Pole like you do at McMurdo.
So to clarify for all the flat earthers out there, you can confirm that you wintered at the South Pole and the sun was gone.
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yes, it was dark for the entire time after it well, there was a little bit of light in the sky for 2 weeks after the sunset and a little bit of light in the sky for about 2 weeks before the sun rose at the end of the season. But for the 5 months in between there, it was completely dark and just beautiful stars and auroras. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
now I guess that's another clarification to make certain is that you never wintered at McMurdo.
Sure.
So you never even would have had the opportunity to compare winters.
That's correct. They're shorter, though. They don't have as much darkness. Definitely not as cold. Have a lot of wind, though, a lot of snow.
Did you experience high winds in McMurdo?
Yes, I did. I went out in some storms, but I don't remember what the wind speed would have been those times. I didn't really record those, which is interesting for me.
To your best of recollection, did it feel substantial? Was it challenging to walk about?
Yeah, and there was snow blowing everywhere too, which made it so you couldn't see the flag poles on the on the path, so you could go not lose your way.
They gave you flag lines there.
Yeah, at South Pole. Sorry, at McMurdo, I didn't ever experience the really harsh windstorms.
Oh, okay, that's what I was asking about. Was McMurdo?
Sorry, I got
Because I had heard they would get sometimes up to 100-mile-an-hour winds.
I'm sure, but I've never experienced those days at McMurdo.
So it was actually stormier for you at Pole?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was those fringe seasons that would have the high winds, I think, like the spring and fall for McMurdo, where if you come early or you stay late, the couple times I did, you get to see that weather a little bit more. But McMurdo in the summer is pretty nice. It's pretty easy to take.
Recently, I just did a video where I covered this big news article that's, all over the global presses and stuff that, stories out of Antarctica are that the weather is 70 degrees hotter than it's ever been on this day at this place before. And everybody's flipping out about it. And I tried to explain to the world that actually kind of happens all the time, that they take so much statistical data that they will say things like, today on December 2nd, this is the hottest it's ever been on a December 2nd. And it could just simply be due to a storm popping in, and that it's actually very common. And I was just
okay.
wondering if you had ever noticed yourself that that's, I mean, pretty much how the winds function in Antarctica.
Oh, they can come up and then be done. Like they can be quick and dirty, done in a day and gone.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then anytime that wind blows in, it's coming from
The
somewhere
wind
else, so
chill.
it's warmer.
Yeah, or cooler. You could get really cold days from the wind chill, I would think, too, from the wind.
Well, hold on, that's the wind chill.
Yeah.
That's different, though. That's the silliness of the wind chill stuff. Because effectively, all right, I don't want to lead the witness.
Yeah.
I don't want to lead the witness. But I'll clarify then. At Pole, this was the issue that we had. This was the funniness with the storms, is that the winds would come in.
Oh, from someplace warmer at Pole. Yeah, for sure.
That's right. Anytime a storm comes
Yeah.
in, right.
Yeah.
So it's exaggerated at Pole, but for all practical purposes in Antarctica, in wintertime, there's a dead low temperature. And if it's going to get cold in the wintertime, if it's going to get a storm in the wintertime, it brings warmth.
Yeah, because the storm comes from off the pole, which is always everywhere else is going to be warmer.
Right.
Almost a given.
And then it's just a matter of a high enough, strong enough wind blows it inland, and then you get, it's a record-breaking temperature on this day, at this hour, in this minute.
Yeah.
That's all that's going on. But they're sensationalizing it to the point that some folks are trying to suggest that this clearly indicates the firing up of a UFO under the ice. Which, don't get me wrong, I'm not against the possibility of that,
Right.
but I would not say that this is clearly indicative of it.
Yeah.
It could simply be common weather stuff.
And is the statement true anyway?
What's this?
The statement they claim that it was 70 degrees warmer, is that even true anyway?
Understood.
Like, what are they saying the temperature is right now?
Right. And not to mention that we're talking freakishly like sub-zero numbers. So they're talking about on a day. So they were saying something like instead of it being minus 70 degrees,
It
it's
was
zero.
Yeah.
So to me, sounds like a storm blew in.
Yeah. Yeah, and if it's winter, it doesn't even get to zero. It won't even, that's crazy. It'd be maybe it's going to 100 and now it's 30.
Right.
Minus
Oh, and the
30.
funny part was that all of the stories, all the headlines were like, Antarctica's melting. And it was like, well, it's getting warm, but if anybody noticed, those temperatures are still well below freezing.
Yeah. Yeah. 3 times below freezing.
Melting's a stretch there.
Yeah.
It's a little bit poetic license for everybody.
A little bit. Oh, but so they can play it so well because no one really normally would know those kinds of things unless they really looked into it.
That's a lot of why I do what I do, is that it's the devil's in the details, and so many folks that have never been to Antarctica, as you know, they just wouldn't know. They don't know when they're being fibbed at.
They don't even know that people go to Antarctica, that there's a pool of people on the planet that have been there and have lived there for long periods of time. I know people that when I was there had been there a cumulative amount over 100 months. Mm-hmm. To my measly 40-something.
Exactly. And then, we have a large portion of the population that still believes it's impossible to get to Antarctica, that there's no such thing as tourism. There's people that think that there is a complete military blockade of the entirety of the Antarctic continent.
Oh, yeah, I think I heard that before, but...
And I don't think anybody
they,
actually
ever?
understands what that would take resource-wise.
Yeah, it's 1.5 times the size of the United States.
It's a lot of coastline.
Yeah.
Yep. So there's a lot of silliness involved in the conversation, unfortunately, when it comes to Antarctica. And I think you're just fortunate enough to be outside of those rings of silliness. But thank you for coming and giving some information and shining some light on the fact that there is some folks that can be really contacted to get involved with these discussions.
Sure. So South Pole was definitely different than McMurdo, to answer your question. Different extremes. Yeah.
Think you might have some photos that we could peruse?
Yeah, it's some good stuff. I pulled up a group of photos that I had done on a slideshow before.
Oh, go for it.
This is the end of one of the McMurdo shows. Little McMurdo pictures. I'll show you this because this shows that you can land there at McMurdo on the sea ice in front of McMurdo in an airliner, a plane. This is from
Wowzers.
Australia. What is it? An Airbus A319. Yeah.
Okay.
So this landed and picked
No
us
skis.
up. Nope. Picked us up. It was kind of a trial thing they did a couple times during my seasons, and so I was able to fly on one. So I had windows, yay! Because you don't always have windows in the Hercs, the C-130s or the C-17s. We don't usually have windows we can see out next to our seats. We can maybe go to a window and climb up and look out of it, and take our turn. But or be on the flight deck, like we've talked about being lucky enough to be on the flight deck during times and seeing it. This is looking out on the sea ice where the other planes land in McMurdo. And so we could do excursions like, to a iceberg like that. I was a leader of those groups.
Nice.
And
And you guys skied out there?
no, we would we'd just walk out there.
Okay.
Take one of the deltas and then we could walk around once we got there. And then I also volunteered to do guides through this pressure ridges. This is where the ice meets the sea ice meets the Erebus ice tongue, and it forms these pressure ridges.
Very
and they
cool.
change and move every day with the pressure of the ice and the tides.
Mm-hmm.
And so here's where the flag used to be vertical, and now it's kind of almost horizontal. So these are some of the pressure ridges, and what looks like with Mount Erebus in the background. That's an active volcano. And there's some lazy seals in the area. And then a trip to the sea ice caves inside where it's all crystallized and everything. It was pretty cool.
When you were in McMurdo, would the sun move about the horizon similar to how it did at Pole?
Well, it was more less in a circle just above your head at McMurdo. It was bigger circle around, but really high.
Okay.
But
it's still like over the course of the day, you would see it circumnavigate you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's a delta, one of the deltas that I drove out there. We pull a sled of emergency bags in case you get stuck out there. You had to have emergency bags for everybody.
Wow, and you guys dragged it, huh?
Yep.
That's
And
interesting.
passengers were in here, and then I was in here usually with somebody else that wanted
Yep.
to ride along. That's to Scott's hut, his expedition hut. Trip out there and inside to see it's like almost preserved perfectly after over 100 years because of the cold and the dry climate there. It preserves things really easily. There's a penguin on the table that had been harvested.
Oh, there you go. Leave it scrolled big.
I don't know why I can't go to the next one if it's
Either.
scrolled big.
Oh, okay.
It's because it's not in the
That's
slideshow
weird.
presentation phase. I'm just looking at some of the pictures that were even made it or didn't make it.
Oh, that works.
So these are bunk beds that the expeditionaries slept in.
Do you have any recollection as to the last time that anybody had actually occupied that in its original use?
I think one of the other expeditioners used it again in maybe the teens, the early teens, like 1910 to 1920 something maybe.
Okay.
Because a few other expeditionists did use it besides Scott. Wait, that was Shackleton. That wasn't Shackleton. No, it was Scott. Sorry.
No worries. You passed the quiz.
Yeah. Gosh.
I was just curious. Oh, that's a nice shot there.
There's a Delta that I drove as a volunteer. And the penguins came to us because they hear the noise from the truck and they come.
Mm-hmm.
And they're really curious. So they just come out.
Mm-hmm.
That's me. And they came really close and just went and squawked went to the back of the Delta, squawked at it a little bit, and then got back on their bellies, sliding out, standing up every once in a while.
So I was never so lucky to be near wildlife like you were, but it's my understanding that that's pretty common, right? That they'll they'll migrate towards you. They're completely unfazed or unafraid of humans.
Yeah, they're not worried about us at all. They're really curious.
Okay.
They came over and they went all the way to the back of this, the delta right here near the sled that we're dragging, and they just kind of looked, and the engine's there. I mean, the muffler and whatever noise. They squawked.
Mm-hmm.
Went back walking over.
That's
went
funny.
away. Yeah. Yeah, they were really cool. Oh, this is one of the wind projects they were doing on McMurdo while I was there.
Mm-hmm.
So then on to South Pole. So I want to show a little bit of that McMurdo stuff. And you have wildlife, you have mountains, volcanoes. There's leopard seals I didn't show. You know, it's kind of a nice little town, McMurdo, as a like work camp. Flying away from McMurdo. And then here, arriving at South Pole, where it's completely flat, there's just buildings. No wildlife.
I was going to say, you're already looking at dark sector there.
Just big projects.
That's the South Pole telescope, folks.
Yep.
And I see a bunch of black flags actually in that shot too. So something was. Oh, I'm sorry. Those were not. On the right, there's black flags, and there's black flags all over that field.
Yeah.
There's a no-go zone going on that day.
And that's the herc that brought me to South Pole.
Nice. That's a great shot.
Some of the places around South Pole, some of the,
Hey, who was on the ladder?
I don't know. The ice tunnels.
Dun, 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 dun.
The power plant. The dome before it was dismantled completely. It was in the dismantling process here. Which is the old South Pole where people live now. This is the elevated station behind this sound, that sign. This is where everybody lives now, but before they used to have to live inside of this. And inside of this were like some containers and some buildings and I don't know. Before my time in Antarctica. So the geographic South Pole. Every year this marker is designed by someone that is voted. Someone votes for the design. Whoever wins, that design goes into that marker, and it's built at the South Pole over the winter, and then put on officially the next summer, I believe. It's me in front of there.
Ta-da!
And then that's the ceremonial South Pole, marked with the flags from the different nations that originally signed the treaty. The Antarctic Treaty. And people do what they call the hero shots from here, where they go out and strip down and get in the cold and have a picture taken in front of this South Pole. And then that's the station entrance and the sign that's there.
Destination Alpha, the main entry.
DA.
Skiway side.
Yeah, where the planes came in. And there's the galley. Or cafeteria. And the library. Or no, this is the club room. Not club room, but what's it called, Eric?
I think of it as the emergency escape pod officially, but it was a rec room as presented.
Yeah.
It could
had a
be
pool table, had some videos, foosball player, table, bar that you could make into a bar, kind of use it with a sink and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And then Eric would know these buildings better than me.
The one on the back left is the South Pole telescope, and the one on the right is MAPO, which has a couple of different telescopes in it, and those are 2/3 of the dark sector territory for science. To the left of what that photo would be where ice cube neutrino detector would be, and that would be the final third of the dark sector.
This is where some of the planes stop, and there was an expedition group that was setting up camp right there near the ceremonial pole. I guess they were flown in, or maybe they skied in and then the plane met them, but they're part of an expedition that's not really allowed to stay in our station. If they needed emergency resources, it would take an act of God to really give it to them. Not really, but some of the stations have decided to do that, but technically they're supposed to be able to support themselves the entire expedition without any help from anybody. There's a library.
A lot of good books in there.
And a little bit of information about the Ice Cube Project.
I'm going to have to get a clip of that one from you.
Yeah, it's pretty good. You can zoom in on that one. It's got a model of how all the there's these holes that were drilled in this pattern, and cables lowered down with domes attached to them, going deep into the earth. With domes being the term for these little globules that have data receptors in them. It's better explained somewhere. There we go.
There's a dom.
That's a dom.
Dom.
Something O module, DO module. And there's the South Pole Traverse as they had come in and kind of posed around the South Pole, ceremony South Pole. They drove these case, I forget what kind of...
I forget the model
the
too,
name
but
of
the
it,
manufacturer is the case.
And yeah, there's another one that's different here. But they drove these from McMurdo to South Pole, and it's about 800 miles. It's over a glaciated area and going uphill most of the way because it goes from sea level to 9,300 feet elevation. And they're towing big bladders of fuel and also tanks and sleep berthing units and kitchen units to be able to eat in while they're traveling across. And here's an airdrop, a test of an airdrop just to see how it went during the summer in case it needed to be done in the winter.
Look at that. That's a nice shot.
Yeah, that's the airdrop. And there's McMurdo from the air with, this is the New Zealand base, which is only about 2 kilometers away from McMurdo. That way is McMurdo. So this is the Kiwi base, Scott base, or research station.
I'm looking in the ice there. Was that pressure ridges right off the shoreline there?
These are the pressure ridges that I was speaking about.
Okay.
Some of them. Yeah, we'd get them along the shoreline too, really massive ridges. I think the ones we were walking on were a little further out than this, though. Maybe not. Maybe not. This could have been them taking a little walk through the pressure ridges. They'd have to go out there and remark the path like every couple days because the pressure from the tides would change the way you could walk safely.
Mm-hmm. That had to be a fun job going to figure that out.
Yeah. Then here's the Erebus ice tongue and how it sticks out into the sea ice right here.
That's really cool.
Right here, you can see the edges of the ice tongue, both sides.
That's really cool shot.
Yeah.
That was one of the cool things I thought about flying to Pole was like when you're going over the Transantarctics and you can just like see the way that the glaciers are flowing over such distances. Like at that altitude, it's like it's kind of like indistinguishable from like actual water. Like you could glimpse in a direction and it seems like it could be waves if you just, you move your head around enough, you wouldn't know that it's not flowing.
Mm-hmm. It's really cool to see stuff from the air.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the bikes in McMurdo.
Wow.
From the rec department left outside.
The wrecked department, it looks like.
And then the wind turbines, once they had those all installed, those are technically like the Kiwis. They're owned by the Kiwis, but we were allowed the extra power that they produced for our station.
Mm-hmm.
Mount Erebus in the background.
What would you say, like, in McMurdo, the potential for recreation was compared to South Pole? I mean, I know you said it was cush, but I mean, I know that South Pole Station was pretty austere, and if you wanted to have a good time, you pretty much had to figure out how to make a good time, which was doable. Like, I'm not,
Oh, yeah.
you know, it was doable, but that's the facts of the matter. You had to figure out how to make a good time. What would your thoughts be about the McMurdo environment in regards to recreation in that capacity?
Well, like you saw, there was that bike that was left out in the winter. That was that was controlled by the recreation department. They would issue bikes, or they would issue gear, other gear, like we had snowshoes that could be issued, and rock climbing gear for the rock climbing cave, the boulder cave, chalk and stuff. We had a bowling alley there at one point, one of my early days in McMurdo, the 2-lane bowling alley that people would volunteer to reset the pins. Had a basketball court and a aerobics gym, and also like a weightlifting gym. So there was so many different kinds of outlets. Plus there were people that would volunteer to put on their classes, like butts and guts class was one of them. You know, yoga.
What was that one?
Butts and guts.
Butts and guts?
Yep, it was.
What
a
was
heavy
butts and guts?
workout for butts and guts is like a heavy workout. This one girl put on. I think it was Karen Joyce that did that, and she just would make people work out their glute and their abdomens a lot.
Okay, so it was targeted workout.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there was
I remember at Pole we had Stitch and Bitch.
oh, it was the knitters that sat around and knit at the same time together, and they'd call it, yeah, that was funny. And then we had a guy that made jewelry, Harry, and he would show people how to make jewelry, and he had supplies. He had jewelry he brought with him, I mean, silver he brought with him, and the, what's it called, the, not welding, but solder, and the guns and all this stuff to make jewelry. And he was showing people, he was teaching them classes. We would just give him a little bit of money for it, what we could, or for the supplies. It was really cool. Such a community too.
It was my understanding that McMurdo also had quite the concert scene and a lot of musicians.
Yeah, there were a lot of people that were very artistic, for one, and they put on sometimes craft shows, and then there'd be musicians who would do shows for our parties, and sometimes the parties were orchestrated by the rec club, which you guys didn't really have a rec department at South Pole, but McMurdo has its own rec department, and for the morale and welfare kind of carryover from the Navy days. But
I'd like to think I played a strong hand in the rec department at South Pole Station.
yeah, like we were all making it ourselves. Yeah, and it was fun.
Club deep freeze.
Yeah.
All day long.
Right. Yeah, and so no, at McMurdo they tried to have some kind of gatherings, like dances, like the 80s party was always kind of put on by the rec department, and they had costumes you could check out from there, like just big wigs and afros and disco clothes and whatever. You know, they had stuff that
I can imagine. I can totally imagine that the rec department at McMurdo probably had so much gear. They probably had like a warehouse full of like stagecraft.
Well, it was small. It was within one of the buildings, B155, but it was still big, and there was a lot to look at. Still a lot of stuff in a small space. Some of it probably came from SCUA, and then it was commandeered by the recreation department because they know they could use it again for other things. But someone worked in that, from usually volunteering. If it wasn't volunteer based, then it wasn't open, I think.
Okay.
But that's how it was towards the end. I believe that rec department maybe used to manage it.
Okay.
More, rather than volunteers. Things were getting tight. You know how it goes.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Budgetary issues. Raytheon's got to tighten the belt sometimes, you know?
Tighten up on MWR.
Yep.
Marine Welfare and what was it? Is it MWR?
Oh, probably like morality.
Recreation. Morale, welfare, and recreation.
There you go.
Yeah. Because a lot of things follow the military from in Antarctica.
Yep.
Yep.
It's very similar programs.
Yeah.
Are those penguins in the water there?
Yeah, so those are Adelie penguins that are near the McMurdo Station, on the water right next to McMurdo Station. You can walk in 10 minutes to see this. And a seal that was out on the sea ice. And here the penguins came closer, and they started flying up out of the water. You'll see later on. They look like ducks, kind of, don't they?
They do kind of look like
They're
ducks.
little, though. Adelie penguins are small.
Mm-hmm.
And here they were off on the shore now. I have some video of them flying out of the water. There's pictures of them flying back in, though. And under.
That's cool. The ice formation there is really weird.
Melting back. Yeah. Oh, and so one of the seasons they put a big tube here that you could go down into the water and attach to a little room where you could kind of look out under the water and just be in it. I forget what they called that and why they had it, but it's just an observation tube.
That's wild.
They had it open to people to be able to go check out the key to go get in there.
Wow.
Yeah, and you could see sometimes if the penguins are around, you'd be able to see them go by. I didn't get to see them.
Uh-huh.
It's not very clear water right there. It's very murky. It's cold.
Yeah, they have to come really close, I guess.
Yeah. Here's some jumping in the water. Here's some flying out. Here you go. They fly and land on their bellies. And then waddle away and go on their bellies away too. So it's fun. It's fun to be able to have that wildlife there, and they don't have that at South Pole. There's no wildlife.
What was the largest seal you might have seen? What do you guess?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
What do you know? What
9
species it
feet
was?
long. Probably the Waddell seals when I was.
So
on
it's
the
a
seal
large
colony.
Weddell seal, not
Yeah.
like an elephant seal or anything like that. Or
Not in Antarctica.
I don't even know where those are at.
I've seen elephant seals in California, Northern California. I've been really close to them. They're huge.
Okay.
Massive weights too. But probably the Waddell seals, and I don't know what they weigh, but it was taller than me, bigger than me, longer, definitely bigger. So I don't know what maybe 400 pounds or something they weigh. This is one of the hikes up around McMurdo's.
What trail was that? Was that Ob Hill?
No, it was the other side. Yeah. Go up to this. There's this cage where it's called Roll Off Mary. There's a cage up here where there's a little kind of religious statue in it of Mary, maybe. I forget what this is called over here, this trail. But this looks like Ob Hill, so maybe I was going up Ob Hill at that one, if this is in order.
Oh, is that the icebreaker breaking up for a barge coming in?
Yep.
Nice.
Yep.
Get some freshies.
And after they painted the roof of the galley.
Looking snazzy.
So, yep, icebreaker and the resupply ship, and then inside of my room.
Very fancy.
Yep.
Hey, there's a seal.
Yep. And then back to the Delta that I drove.
Very cool.
And pin setting.
Oh, there you go.
In the bowling alley. And the skua. Oh, this is blown up, isn't it, still?
That's looks like penguin footprint.
Yeah, these are penguin footprints. And when I went to wrestle seals.
Man, you guys had the science snow machine team. You had the nice snow machines. Supporting
This
science.
is McMurdo, man.
Yeah. You guys had the nice
There's
equipment.
one of the seals that we tracked down, the radio transmitter.
Very cool.
Yeah. That was cool. And leaving South Pole.
Wow, that's a nice photograph.
Yeah. Oh, surgery at the South Pole.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Appendectomy. I was volunteer. Right there. On the left.
Ta-da.
TD. Nurse Holly.
That was a fun day.
Yeah. That's the only time I wore a mask. Ever. That's 4 hours.
Good job.
Yep.
When it actually is appropriate.
I'll close these down, man.
Oh, you got it. No problem at all. Thank you very much for sharing your photos with us today. That was awesome.
That was just a little peek at some stuff that was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Different views of different stations for sure.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, I really do appreciate the time that you came by here in studio today. It's always a pleasure to have you and talk about our time on the ice. I love talking about it because the McMurdo stuff I find interesting because I didn't really spend that much time there. I just passed through. I did 366 days on the ice, and I'm pretty sure like 365 of them were at South Pole proper. So
Yeah.
I wish I could have seen more of McMurdo. You guys had a lot of cool gear and equipment and so many buildings and so many nooks and crannies. It would have been nice to have passed around through there. But maybe another time we'll get our butts back down to the ice. You never know. There's a lot of folks that I talk to that are talking about doing private expeditions, and if people want to fund them, then you never know. It's a possibility. And I guess if I could go in a different capacity that I define, maybe I'd be a bit more interested than going in the way that we did last time. So you never know. Maybe we'll have another chance to do it.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for having me on.
No problem at all. And we'll see you next time.
Okay.
So long, everybody. Thanks for coming by, and have an excellent day.